Blog Talk Radio.
There's a direct relationship between having the businesses and being in prison. Go find see how many Asians you can find in American prisons. They ain't gonna be in there. But 51% of your prisoners will be black because blacks don't have any businesses and industries. There's a direct link. Blacks won't practice group economics. Black won't practice group politics. If you don't practice, you're setting yourself up. I told that 5-story building, you're setting yourself to get wiped out. Understand the nature of race, which is economics. If you build the first floor, it's economic. Build your businesses and your industries. Control business and industry, and put that pools in your money, and hold that money, and practice group economics with it. Arab and Asian money bounces 12 to 13 times what it leaves. Jewish money bounces 18 times. Black folk got to learn how to practice group economics. Black Americans spend every penny they get outside their own community. Then you take the money and the wealth that you get from that first floor and go to the second floor. The second floor is politics. You then take that money on the first floor and you control your politics. Black folk must quit allowing people to tell them to go out and vote. Vote for what? Nobody's going to do anything for black folk in politics. Politics is controlled by money. Major corporations who got the money. That's what controls politics. If you have no money, you have no say-so, you have no benefits coming. So you take your money and you control, and you take your money from the first floor, you buy every politician on the second floor. And any politician you can't buy, you rent or lease them to get what you need. Then once you get the second floor under control with the politician, with your money, then you go to the third floor. The third floor is the police department and the court system. You take your money from the first floor and your politics on the second floor, and you control the court system and the police departments. Then the fourth floor then is media. You then take the money that you generate off the first floor from business and industries, and you go after radio stations, TV stations, newspapers, and cable systems, so that you can now inform and communicate with your own people. Right now, black folk own and control less than 35,000% of the media in the United States. Out of 12,000 radio stations, black folk own about 75, 80. That's all. You own no cable systems. You don't have a daily newspaper. You have nothing of importance. You got about one black TV station. And so you can't communicate with your people. You can't inform your people. You can't do anything. You can have Rush Limbaugh and all the rest of the guys talking about racism all day long and bad-mouthing you, and O'Reilly. They can call black folk all kind of names all day long. What are you going to do? You can't respond. You can't communicate with your own people because you don't have an economic base. 51% of all the prisoners in the United States are black people. You only make up 12% of the population. That's no accident. It's because you don't control the economics and the politics. And they're going to go after the weakest people they can get their hands on to incarcerate them. That's the black folk. And what are you going to do in response to them when they over-incarcerate you? You're going to go out and have a march, a demonstration. We're going to march. March for what? Who cares? Marches, they never changed anything.
All right, today's It's My House is titled 12 Reasons Why Neighborhoods Get Gentrified. Live stream number 619-768-2945. Once again, 619-768-2945. And let's see. Before we go into our 12 reasons why, let's take this quick morning musical interlude.
on down, get on down. Get on down, get on down, get on down. In my funky town. In my funky town. Get on down, get on down, get on down. Get on down, get on down, get on down. In my funky town. In my funky town. Get on down, get on down, get on down. Get on down, get on down, get on down.
All right, today's podcast is titled 12 Reasons Why Neighborhoods Get Gentrified. I'm going to present them in no particular order. We're just going to put 12 reasons why neighborhoods get gentrified. The live stream number, once again, is 619-768-2945. Once again, 619-768-2945. You can call in and chime in as well. If you do, this press one will patch you into the conversation. Now, like I said, these are in no particular order. And as we stated before on here, if you own the neighborhood, your neighborhood can't get gentrified, other than maybe for eminent domain. But if you own it, I mean, on the block, you or a collective of people, your neighbors, you guys collectively own the block, then the chances of your neighborhood, or at least block, getting gentrified, it's like super low. But anyway, but that's not the case. That's not the case with most neighborhoods. So we're going to just put out 12 reasons why. They're not the only 12 reasons, but this happens in a lot of your urban neighborhoods. And like I say, these are in no particular order.
Now we'll do it 6. The hunt is on to find some beauty store bandits, but these crooks weren't after cash. Police say they came in targeting some pricey hair. CBS 4's Lauren Pastrana is live at the store in North Miami Beach with more. Lauren, this is a new one to me.
It really is, Elliot, and it seems these people were after a specific brand of hair extensions that tend to be on the more expensive side. But what they stole isn't as strange as who stole it. Cops say they are looking for 4 minors. One, a boy just 8 years old.
This may look like a calm exchange, just a few people chatting around the cash register at the discount beauty supply store in North Miami Beach. But when these kids try to leave with a backpack without showing what's inside, one of them flashes a gun.
Speechless. Nothing to say, I just shocked, and like I had a customer, they would say, oh, don't say anything.
Noor Udin says 4 young people, 3 boys and a girl, walked into the store Saturday afternoon and cruised the aisles. He didn't know it at the time, but one kid, apparently the youngest of the bunch, kept slipping into the back room and putting merchandise into a backpack.
Like almost half an hour, I think they was inside of the store. So they are doing something, they just keep doing something, so we was asking, what do you guys needed?
Udin eventually realized something wasn't right and grabbed the backpack, but the kids refused to leave it behind. That's when one boy took out a gun.
I just let him in because my cousin was trying to hold on. I said, no, let him go, because he got a gun, so we don't want to get in, any damage to, anybody.
Udin says they got away with $5,000 worth of hair extensions. He thinks they knew exactly what they were looking for because they only took this particular brand, which retails for more than $100 per pack. Police believe the youngest boy in this video could be as young as 8 years old.
What really concerns the North Miami Beach Police Department and should concern the community is the ages of these subjects.
That's the most shocking thing. How could the little boy could do that stuff? Is their parents teach them, somebody to teach them? We said, how they know what to get?
And police believe the oldest person in that video is only 17 years old. Anyone with information about this case should contact Miami-Dade Crime Stoppers. That number is 305-471-TIP. Live in North Miami Beach, Lauren Pastrana, CBS 4 News.
Hard to believe, Lauren.
All right, here you have 4 young females, and they carried an 8-year-old with them. Or the kid, they believe that the boy was at least probably 8 years old. They're robbing a store that sells wigs and hair extensions. There's about 2 or 3 reasons minimum in that particular news report of why some neighborhoods get gentrified. But before we name some of those reasons, let's play this other clip that sort of mirrors this last clip.
Baloo High School student murdered on Monday believes he was killed over a new pair of Air Jordans. We spent time with the family of James Anthony Smith, and needless to say, it was a difficult interview to do. Here's Scott Broom.
17-year-old James Anthony Smith's mom said his life was wasted for a pair of brand new Air Jordans.
So bad.
17-year-old Venia Blaine hugs the mother of James Anthony Smith.
Because he's not a troubled person. He's a nice person. He stayed away from trauma.
It's a shame. Over some shoes.
Mom, Benita Smith.
It was just an early Christmas gift from me to him. All he wanted was a pair of shoes for Christmas. That's all he asked me for.
Buddy, he always say,
George Wright.
Man, if Michael Jordan and Nike had to pay for some of these funerals out here, they wouldn't make these shoes as expensive as they are, because it's ridiculous.
James Anthony Smith was on this basketball court at the Frederick Douglass Community Center in Southeast when he was attacked and shot Monday evening. He collapsed a short distance away. First responders found his new Air Jordans were missing.
These will definitely sell out. Because you know what?
Featured in ads and in YouTube reviews, the Air Jordan 11 Win Like 96 model debuted December 8th for $220. They are already sold out.
That James was a good kid, man. He wasn't out here causing any trouble. Looked like trouble came and found him, though.
I'm almost sorry that I got him for him.
Metropolitan Police say robbery may have been a motive. They have not made any arrests. In Southeast D.C., Scott Brew.
You know, it saddens me to have to make this video. Young boy gunned down for Christmas because his mother gave him an early gift of some red Jordans, $220 sneakers. James Smith of D.C., Washington, D.C., murdered for his sneakers. And for what? $220 sneakers. Where does this mentality come from? Where we can't even see a 17-year-old boy enjoy his Christmas gift, an early Christmas gift, a pair of sneakers. On Monday, this young boy was gunned down over a pair of sneakers, red Jordans. Basketball sneakers. Who produces this mindset? Where does this mindset comes from? And you know the sad part about it? Is that his mother probably is going to hear some bullshit about stop snitching, kill all rats. Well, I totally disagree. It's not snitching to clean up your community. It's snitching when you commit a crime with somebody and you tell on the person that committed that crime with you. That's snitching. When you tell on them little bastards that's running around gunning down your own children, you can't even give them a holiday gift without somebody's little niglet coming along, some real nigga or bad bitch combined together, giving birth to this little bastard with this bastard mentality. That woman went out and worked with her hard-earned money, or she saved up to give a child a $220 pair of sneakers. And then some little ungrateful, degenerate bastard comes along and say, you know what? I'm just miserable with life. And I don't want to see you happy with something that I don't have, so I'm going to take your life for some sneakers. $220 pair of sneakers. It's heartbreaking to see that we at war on so many different levels, but this is how we treat each other. It's like, well, damn. Is this what the future holds for our children? Our children killing our children? When does the madness stop, people? It's like, damn, it's every man for himself. But yet and still, the powers to be is poisoning your cereal, poisoning your juices, poisoning your skies, poisoning your waters with fluoride. And then you got to go outside. And when you go outside, you want some power to the people shit with the same people that you saying black people unite to. It's their children killing your children. It's your own killing your own, man. When are we going to wake up, people? When do we wake up? When is enough going to be enough? When do we go back to being brothers and sisters and get away from being niggas and bitches? When do we wake up, people? Is enough not enough? How many more of our children going to be murdered because we raising real niggas and bad bitches? The recipe for destruction. No more brothers and sisters. No more black people unite. Because that's whack, right? I know.
Today's topic, 12 reasons why neighborhoods get gentrified. And in that last clip, you heard the guy, well, that's not an isolated case. There have been several people killed here in the United States over a pair of athletic shoes, Air Jordans. Probably some other brands, but Air Jordans gets the most publicity out of it. Now, in the clip before that, there were 4 teenage girls, young ladies, if you want to call them that, with a tag-along 8-year-old that robbed a weave store that was owned by an Asian. In those 2 stories lies some of the 12 reasons why some neighborhoods get gentrified. Number 1, let's take it with the children. If you don't have a family, and once again I said, if you own the block on an individual household level or on a group collective level, own the block and all the businesses on the block, the chances of your block or neighborhood getting gentrified are almost nil. Neighborhoods where you have people that live in the neighborhood, where the families don't have a family business, where you as parents or your children are not a part of a family business, don't even own a family home. There's no vested interest in a business on that block or a piece of real estate on that block. If you don't have a vested interest, you don't own the block, and your block is subject to getting gentrified. Maybe not now. 10, 15, 30 years from now, it might be. Let's go to another example of, not example, but reason why some neighborhoods might get gentrified.
But squatters won't leave a Colorado Springs home. Now the homeowner will take them to court.
Yeah, we first told you last night about the homeowner who says her home is really just being held hostage. She's a single mom trying to pay her son's medical bills. She now lives in New Hampshire and needs to quickly sell her Colorado Springs home, but those squatters won't leave.
Only KRDO News Channel 13's Emily Allen confronted the squatters.
James and Heather, the squatters were supposed to clear out by noon today, but they made it very clear they do plan to stay.
Ask you a few questions.
They park in the garage, they play in the backyard, and they even get packages delivered. But realtor Linda Schauer will tell you they don't belong there.
I don't want to call them names, but I think they're like cockroaches. They've gone into this house and they're not going to get out.
Squatters live in Pauline Hawkins' home. They told her they'd been scammed into thinking the home was for rent. She allowed them to stay until Christmas.
How could we know better when we would never even think of such a thing? We are the kind of people that are compassionate and trusting and loving, and when we see somebody in need, we lend a hand. Even if we don't have anything to give, we do what we can.
He changed the lock.
Hawkins and her realtor Linda Schauer now know they made a big mistake. Letting them stay that week gave them legal protection. Now Hawkins will have to evict them as if they were her tenants, even though they aren't paying rent.
I've never had this experience before in my career as a realtor. I've never had anybody break into a house and then claim it's theirs.
We'd like to ask you a few questions. Oh. Are you guys going to be out by noon today?
I don't think that's really any of your concern.
So why do you guys feel privileged to stay at this house?
Burglary in progress, 6334 Crystal Mountain Road.
The squatters were apparently put off by our questions. The woman tried to get us arrested. That didn't work.
So Hawkins is now going to have to go to court in order to get her house back. Today she did end up hiring an attorney, and there's a group that stepped up to help raise money to cover some of those costs.
So it all comes back to essentially squatters' rights. By letting them stay for that 1 week out of the goodness of their heart, now there's nothing they can do. There's no criminal action, even though these people are essentially living there, not paying anybody.
Exactly. That's the crux of the problem, is she gave them that permission that one time. Even though she had set a time limit on it, it doesn't matter. It's now a civil issue, and police can't come in and kick her out.
So she has to take this into the civil courts, and that could take an untold amount of time to resolve itself.
Exactly. We don't know exactly how long it's going to take, but we do know that it's going to take several months.
Emily, thanks.
Thanks so much.
Well, that's another reason why some neighborhoods get gentrified, because you have people that are abusing the law. More than likely, the lady with her, who had children, who a nice person let them stay for a week. If they didn't know, they learned quick that they don't have to move out when you ask them to move out. And it can cause, and squatters are rampant from coast to coast, particularly in major urban areas. So if you've got a person with a rental property or two, and you've got a squatter problem, which eventually you will have somewhere along the line if you're in the landlord game long enough. If you don't have the resources to fight that, then you can end up losing property. The property can end up being vacant. And once again, you lost your ownership stake in it. And if you go to a place like Detroit, Baltimore, Cleveland, Pittsburgh, place where, these bigger cities that have a lot of some areas, and you see blocks of property that's just boarded up. Some of those properties, all those boarded up houses have a story to tell. And trust me, squatters have a lot to do with a lot of those boarded up buildings, their story. And those neighborhoods are subject to get gentrified. Let's go to our next reason here. Like I said, they're in no particular order. Let's go to this next one on inheritance theft.
Inheritance theft is abuse of the elderly. $100 trillion will be passed from one generation to the next in the next 20 years. No inheritance is too small or too large.
I'm attorney Robert Adamski. During my 30 years practicing law, I have handled more than 1,000 inheritance disputes. Inheritance disputes cost thousands, sometimes millions, in lost inheritance, and worst of all, tear families apart. I call inheritance thieves inheritance hijackers because they divert an inheritance from the intended recipient to the hijacker. My book, Inheritance Hijackers: Who Wants to Steal Your Inheritance and How to Protect It, was written to help people like you avoid devastating inheritance disputes. Inheritance Hijackers is the first book to explain in plain English who steals inheritances, why, when, and how inheritances are stolen, why we are all potential victims, and how to protect yourself and your family. My book explains the dangers inherent in all family inheritance situations and gives practical advice on how to avoid risk of theft to the inheritance you intend to give or the inheritance you expect to receive. Inheritance Hijackers also contains 5 stories of actual inheritance hijackings, illustrating 5 of the most common situations. Most people will see themselves or their family in at least one of these stories. I am happy to say that readers throughout the country have raved about inheritance hijackers and thanked me for making this information available to them. Visit my website to learn more and take a quiz to learn your risk of being a victim.
All right, inheritance hijacking. If you have a family that's, you raised the children, and let's take a page from yesterday, because we talked about generational wealth yesterday. And we can sort of bring it into this conversation as well, because, as they stated, from one generation to the next, there's $100 trillion worth of wealth that is transferred, that can potentially be transferred. Well, matter of fact, will be transferred. However, will that transfer of wealth, $100 trillion, reach the intended people that it's for? With inheritance hijackers, oftentimes you have relatives stealing from other relatives. We had a guest on this program about maybe 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago. In his case, his brother got control of a house via what do you call it, an attorney, a power of attorney, kicked him out of the house, did a little repair to the house, sold, and now, mind you, the house was paid off. The house was originally bought for like no more than $42,000. Sold the house for $600,000 and didn't give his brother not even 6 cents. These were half brothers, and the younger brother who was kicked out of the house, it was his father who bought the house. That's an example of inheritance theft. Now, we're going to, which is another reason why some neighborhoods get gentrified. Inheritance theft. Now, next clip we're going to play, next 2 clips have to do with Martin Luther King. Martin Luther King. Now, let me set this up. Yesterday we said a generation is anywhere from 20 to 30 years. In a 100-year period of time, a century, you typically have about 4 generations, 4 to 5. So let's put the generation at 20 years. So in 100 years, you've got anywhere from 4 to 5, generations. If you count a generation as 20 years, 5 times to 20 years is 100 years. Or if you count it, you split the difference between 20 and 30, 25, you got 4 generations. All right. Martin Luther King has been gone for 2 generations, 50 years. Let's see what his children are up to.
Sometimes I wonder what Martin Luther King would make of Martin Luther King's children these days. Yes, the King kids are at it again, back in court arguing with each other, this time over possession of their father's traveling Bible. That's the one that Barack Obama was sworn in on for his second inaugural, and which the president autographed, and Martin Luther King's Nobel Peace Prize from back 50 years ago. The brothers, Martin III and Dexter, want to get possession of these items, currently in the possession of baby sister Bernice, who is the CEO of the King Center in Atlanta. And Bernice doesn't want them to have it because these guys want to sell it, evidently, in order to raise money for the King Center. this is the kind of thing we've gotten used to in recent years, although it's still a national embarrassment on King's legacy and just, a darn shame. The judge decided to take the items or have them ordered into a lockbox while he resolves this dispute. Good luck, Your Honor. This reminds me of King Solomon. He had two women, each claiming to be the mother of this baby. So King Solomon said, okay, let's split the baby in half. One woman said, that's okay, she can have the baby. And King Solomon awarded her the baby because she was the one who wanted to save the baby's life. Now, maybe the judge could do that with Martin Luther King's Bible. He could order to have it cut in half right in front of the King kids and see who will jump forth first and sacrifice the Bible in order to preserve it. I don't know. We might just wind up with two halves of a Bible. And I'm Clarence Page.
Here you have the Kings. Martin and Coretta Scott King had 4 children. The oldest, Yolanda, she passed away. So you have 3 left. MLK III, Dexter, and the youngest, Dr. Bernice, who's also a reverend. So you got the 2 male children of MLK and Coretta Scott King ganging up on a baby sister because, like a bunch of crackheads, that's the 2 brothers, that is, they want to sell the Bible of their father, Barack Obama, used when he first was sworn in as President of the United States. The 2 brothers want to sell it. I call that a dope fiend mode. They might not be dope fiend, but hey. Because for some reason they need money. And they want to sell the Nobel Peace Prize too. Obviously, MLK did not get his PhD in estate planning, and neither did Coretta Scott King. But I'll tell you what they did fight for, and that leads to this next clip.
Angel Adams says her children are a gift from God, but now she needs help caring for them. Adams is blaming the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office Child Protection Team and others for her problems.
In my case, they done been in my life 6 months, and I'm homeless.
37-year-old Angel Adams blames the system for her problems, a system of social service agencies trying to help her. Adams has 15 children, 12 who are now living with her in this small motel room. While we were in the room, the children had no food available, no shoes, and Adams says they haven't had a change of clothes in more than 3 days. A concerned employee of the motel called us after seeing her plight. Landlords recently evicted Adams and her children from this Tampa apartment after discovering she was living there with her 12 children. The kids' clothes, books, toys, and furniture are now out on the curb, picked over by scavengers. The building's owners say they gave ample warning to Adams, warnings they say she chose to ignore.
We tried to help them, and I think several other agencies, with paying of her rent and the paying of her utilities and stuff, did more than their part.
But Adams says her life didn't start to fall apart until social service agencies got involved. Her fiancé, Gary Brown Sr., the man who fathered 10 of her 15 children, was arrested, and Adams says she was left with nothing.
I don't have any clothes. People been donating food just around here, just helping me out with food, and I don't have anything.
We called the Department of Children and Families to see what they've been doing to help. DCF says Hillsborough Kids Incorporated has been helping by paying Adams rent, even providing her furniture. Adams says it isn't enough.
Somebody needs to pay for all my children, and mine and Gary, all our suffering, somebody needs to be held accountable, and they need to pay.
DCF Regional Director Nick Cox wanted to see for himself the situation that Adams now finds herself in.
I know there's some help that's been coming your way, but what I'm concerned about right now is I want to make sure, number one, that for right now, all of you and your kids don't belong in that one room.
Tonight, Angel Adams and her 12 children are in a much better place after Nick Cox, who is the regional director of the Department of Children and Families, got involved. He found a temporary home at a kid's place in Brandon for the family. DCF says they will sit down with Adams and a team of case management workers to determine the best way to move forward to help her.
Thank you, Martin Luther King and the Civil Rights Movement. That's what we got out of it. 2 generations later, we have people out here, some people, not all people, that are living in neighborhoods that have that type of entitlement attitude. You heard what the lady said. Somebody needs to be held accountable for those, her 15 children. Go to YouTube, look up Angel Adams, Tampa woman, 15. She's got like 16 kids now, 16 or 17 kids now. So that's another reason why some neighborhoods get gentrified. She has no vested interest in the system at all. The father of her, 10, all right, when this story was done, 16 children, and one guy who was the father of 10 of them, he got locked up. They don't say why, but it's probably child support. When you got all this craziness in a particular household, and you kind of different neighborhoods and different blocks, where nobody has any vested interest in the block, those neighborhoods get gentrified. Part of it is, and one of today's podcast is titled 12 Reasons Why Neighborhoods Get Gentrified, is, and then linking that to Martin Luther King, okay, estate planning. I played this clip yesterday on estate planning. I'm going to play it again because MLK, who had a PhD, Coretta Scott King, I believe she had a master's degree, and then the King children, who are all college graduates. And what is mind-boggling to me, they can reach out to a number of high-profile politicians, celebrities, wealthy people, and for some reason, the topic of estate planning, where you plan out 3 or 4 generations ahead of yourself, never gets put on the table and talked about. Therefore, you get reduced down to selling the family Bible. May as well take that college degree sheepskin and wipe your ass with it.
Meet Sophie. Sophie has been working at Corporate Co. for the past 6 years. Sophie's happy and thinks she has everything she needs: a great job, a loving husband, and an adorable puppy named Luke. However, unbeknownst to Sophie, she's actually missing one thing: an estate plan. Sophie is stunned. What on earth is an estate plan? Well, Sophie should think of it as a collection of legal documents that specifies things like how your property will be divided once you die, who will take care of your children and your pets, and perhaps most importantly, who will make medical and financial decisions on your behalf should you become incapacitated. Now, I know what most of you are thinking. I don't need any of this. And for the most part, you're right. If you're a single, childless individual with few assets, you probably don't need an estate plan. However, if you're married, have children, or possess significant property, then the benefits of an estate plan are just too important to pass up. Sophie seems convinced, but still has one last question. How on earth does an estate plan work? Well, it generally operates through 5 components. The first one is the will, which covers things like what property you're leaving to whom, and who will be your children's guardian. As for who actually carries out these tasks, since you're dead, you'll nominate a trustworthy individual to be your executor. Thus, a will has powerful advantages, but it also has serious limitations. Most prominently, any financial account with a named beneficiary, like a 401k or IRA, will supersede the claims of your will. However, don't worry. You can easily change these beneficiaries to the right person if you haven't already. So that's the first component. The second component of an estate plan is a living will, which dictates your preferences for end-of-life care, should you be unable to communicate them. This document is then generally paired with the third component, a healthcare proxy, which names a trustworthy individual to make medical decisions on your behalf. Both documents are critically important, as without them, your doctors must follow state-defined hierarchies, which could leave you and your loved ones with a very unfavorable outcome. Then we have the fourth component, assignment of the power of attorney, which names a trusted individual to manage your financial affairs should you become incapacitated. And no, these powers are actually not automatically assigned to your spouse. In fact, without this power, your spouse could have significant limitations on selling even joint-owned property. Finally, should Sophie have a net worth of more than $100,000 or substantial real estate assets, she may want to consider the fifth component of an estate plan, a trust. Think of a trust as a legal box, which you can fill with assets, like a house, to be passed down to a specific individual, called a trustee, once you die. This has two major advantages. One, it allows you to minimize your estate taxes, and two, it keeps your larger assets out of probate, which is the pricey, time-consuming way the court distributes your property and pays off your debts as outlined in your will. Finally, as for actually making the estate plan, while you can technically use a cheap do-it-yourself online resource, we just don't recommend it. It's too easy to make a costly legal mistake. That's why, instead, we recommend hiring an experienced estate planning lawyer. And don't worry, our recommended website makes this process a breeze. Hopefully you and Sophie now better understand estate planning. Be sure to check out our next video, which covers children and finances, and be sure to check out our website, where you can find more educational content and great legal solutions.
I would say that would be the number one reason why neighborhoods get gentrified. And we presented things here in no particular order, but I'm going to put that one at number one. You find that neighborhoods that get gentrified on a critical mass basis, the people that are living in that neighborhood on an individual household basis, which adds up to a collective basis, do not have an estate plan. If people are married or living together, cohabitating, whatever you want to call it, they don't have an estate plan. We're going to do a workshop where it'll get into estate planning. And as part of that, we're going to ask people to write out, even if they're not together with anybody, but, you know, to get the mindset out there, have a relationship plan. And here's what I mean by a relationship plan. Just like a business plan, because a relationship is a business, have a one-sentence mission statement. That mission statement, that one sentence long, not a paragraph, but one sentence long, should define why you two people are together. That one sentence should be bigger than the both of the two individuals that are in that particular relationship. Because unless you have a strong mission statement, once again, only one sentence long, you won't be able to go from one generation to the next. Once again, a generation is anywhere from 20 to 30 years. The MLK story, 2 generations now, and it's in the remaining siblings, offspring of MLK and Coretta Scott, they've taken each other, I don't know, I lost count, at least 5 times. They've been in and out of court. They've had at least 2 mediators, Andrew Young and President Carter. Now, had MLK and Coretta Scott and the estate plan, this information is like at every public library. But anyway, had they estate planned, estate plan is a way that you can take your wealth with you. You can take it to the grave and can control it from the grave. We're going to bring on a couple of people, if not this week, next week, that'll get into the, you know, how trusts, what are trusts, what are living trusts, what are different types of trusts, and, you know, how you can control things so you can prevent a situation like with the MLK siblings, where the Bible, the Bible and the Nobel Peace Prize, all that's decided while you're alive and in good mind. You can control all that, so they won't be taking each other to court. Because with estate planning, like I said, you're planning at least 3 generations out, which is anywhere on a low end. You're thinking at least 60 years at a minimum out. Minimum of 60 years out into the future. That's 3 generations on the low end. On average, it's about 75. I suggest planning 100 to 150 years out. Let's see, what else was there? 619-768-2945. If you have any comments on reasons why neighborhoods get gentrified, we've thrown out some here. Let me look on my notes. We're not going to get to all 12 today. Let me see, okay. Oh, wait a minute. Did I get it in here? Let me look. Let's see. Oh, man. I lost my studio. Wait a minute. I got to get my studio back. Oh, okay. Let me see. Studio. There was another clip, if I can find it on here. Another reason why it had to deal with substance abuse, because we lose a lot to substance abuse, alcohol, drug abuse, and the clip I have, I didn't get a chance to load it up. All right, but in any event, we'll be having workshops on this and how you can protect, how you can build and protect your wealth, so your wealth could go to who you want it to go to, and you can see how that's going right now while you're still here and in good sound mind. Okay, I didn't get that other clip, but in any event, now I think tomorrow, we have a live guest that'll be in studio, and we'll be talking about gentrification as well. See what their take on it is. Okay, yeah. All right. So anyway, the bottom line is, if you now, that's why I recommend that a lot of you know what, because it's difficult to get a critical mass of people, your neighbors. Let's say you just live on one block. It's difficult to get these people together. That's why I recommend get something in a rural area and develop that. Let's see, we do have a caller here. 410, your mic is open.
Good morning, Brother L.A. How you doing?
Oh, fine. Good to hear you.
I didn't mean to interrupt your train of thought. For the last couple of days you've been talking gentrification and generational wealth and a number of other things that's very important. And I always go back to one of the statements that you've been making since I've been listening to you. And that is the phrase that you use called the lone wolf syndrome?
Lone wolf. Yeah, lone wolf.
Well, I think I told you one time before, the law that everyone lives by, other ethnic, racial groups live by, is, survival of the fittest, and the first law of nature, self-preservation. Which all of that, right. all of that is related. And the thing is, I like to give you an example of what you're talking about. My grandmother has 6 kids. And, like a lot of these modern girls, what happened is her mother died when she was 12 years old, and she was the oldest child, so her mother promised her to keep the family together. And a girl at 12 years old at that age with that responsibility, she didn't have a chance to really go and get a proper schooling. But, her father died soon after her mother did. And I'm trying to lead up to this. When I go to these family reunions now, we don't talk about generational wealth. We go in and we have a banquet, we have a cookout, and the first thing we do is we want to do a line dance, and we got old school music and everything else, the kids out there playing and everything else. And when you talk about what you're talking about, generational wealth and keeping the family property, there's only 2 or 3 of the kids that kept the old homestead. The rest of them wasn't interested. And they got involved in the migration up north and everything, and got into all of the other stuff that we do on Friday nights and Saturday nights. And the thing is, I brought up a conversation during a family reunion that if now the oldest one of them was 92 years old, just passed away. If each one of those generations had been doing what you talked about and just put aside their income tax return every year, they wouldn't have had to worry about a thing. And they could have expanded on what my grandmother left, because my grandmother worked and scraped and bought a house and bought some property and everything. And the thing is, only 2 of them was able to go ahead and keep the little bit that she had. And that's what happens when you go into these communities. I lived in the city for a while, and you know my story. And the thing is, there were whole blocks of empty houses. And if I can give you the street. In Baltimore, when I first moved there was whole streets of empty houses that you could have gotten for $1. And all you had to do was refurbish them.
You still got them up there. I just saw something maybe 2 or 3 days ago on the internet where they're talking about bringing back the Dollar House program in Baltimore.
Yeah. So now, look, while I was there, the Catholic Church on a couple of the blocks, what they do is they have a program where they'll go in and get a bunch of guys that needs jobs, and they'll refurbish these houses, and then they'll sell them out to people that needs housing. Well, now the thing is, you got 2 things working here, and I'm going to try and pull it all together for you. You got families that need housing that at a family reunion, if they could get together and say, well, look, instead of me buying the latest BMW or the latest Mercedes-Benz or ever what the hell we buy, take what we pay a month and put it in a fund, and any of us that are renting, we'll go out and we'll buy one of these houses or several of these houses, and give someone a place to live, and whatever you will spend on rent, we just put that in the pot. And the other thing is, if you know friends, because we get together at cookouts and stuff like that, all of these dollar houses, instead of us going ahead on and smoking a crack pipe, or either running trying to, run up on a loose woman with, that we can lay down with. If I got 3 children and I'm a single mother and I'm on Section 8 or ever what have you, and I'm getting a non-support check, why don't I take that and put it in a fund with the rest of us poor folk, buy up the darn block, And we got a whole bunch of these fellows around here with their pants halfway to butts, and go in, give them a job, renovating these houses, and we got somewhere to live. But, this conversation never comes up with us. Now, don't get me wrong, there are other ethnic groups that are suffering just as bad as we are, but I'm just particularly interested in our plight and our condition.
Right.
But, we never get together with sensible thinking. And we got a church on every block, and that minister can get those people to build a brand new church somewhere, multi-million dollars. I'm looking at a guy now. He's talking these people into building a $500,000 church, and most of those members are renting. Just think what he could do if he did what you're talking about. And that's where the problem is. Gentrification doesn't have to be a condition that is unique to black folk. We got the money. We just don't have the mind. And I'll let you comment on that to see where you stand on this. And maybe I'm wrong.
No, you're right. Matter of fact, let's just jump off from Baltimore. Let's take the dollar program, which they're talk of bringing that back. For people that don't know, in Baltimore City, they probably had this in some other cities too. But back in the, I think, early 70s, Baltimore, Maryland had a program which you can buy a house. The city had owned houses, and
yes,
in order to get the properties rehabilitated and back on the tax rolls and be productive to the city, as well as the community and city of Baltimore, they said, all right, we're going to offer these houses up for $1 purchase price. Now, mind you, people, it doesn't include closing costs, and then quite a few of these properties, they need to be rehabilitated. So you might need a lot more than $1, to get the things fixed up. But long story short, what happened with the Inner Harbor and Fells Point, which is right outside the Inner Harbor in Baltimore, Maryland, at one time, the Inner Harbor was a black on top of black neighborhood. It ain't no more. It hasn't been that way for a few decades now. They did just like you said, Connie. People came in and they purchased those houses. And we're not talking about droves of people. They got together, they purchased these houses, and then they pooled their money together. They formed a wolf pack, and now a lot of those I don't even know what those houses are worth now, because Inner Harbor is not cheap. Fells Point is not cheap. And the demographics, a lot of the people that live in, black people that lived in Inner Harbor back in the 60s, prior to 1973, a lot of those people moved out of the city, probably in the Baltimore County or somewhere outside of Baltimore City or another part of Baltimore. But you're right, because the sin and shame of it, or part of it, is there's no shortage of churches that existed in that neighborhood when they had the dollar program out. Now, like I said, there's talk of bringing that back, because in the city of Baltimore, they've got over 20, I'm going to this conservative number, they've got over 26,000 houses that are vacant and boarded up right now that the city owns. That number might be closer to 40, but I'm going to put it at a low number. It's 26,000. So you're right. If it doesn't take a whole lot, we don't even need people to do it. You can get a handful of people. You know what? If just a church, doesn't have to be a mega church, with just, like I say, if y'all can get together and raise money to get a new church, a sanctuary, if you can raise money to get a new bus, do bake sales or whatever, fried chicken or whatever, that it's the same principle of raising money. And you can, these houses need to be renovated. And this is just not Baltimore, but basically, because Detroit, you can do the same thing. Cleveland, you can do this. Any city in the Rust Belt, you can do this. Any city, anywhere, you can do this. It can be a small little storefront church, and you just get together with the people that are within that congregation and maybe a neighbor. Then you can start employing people. It's the ripple effect keeps on going. So you're absolutely right. And that's some of the reasons why we have been Too many. Well, the people that, because it's just not restricted to black folks. Neighborhoods that get gentrified are basically made up. That neighborhood is made up of lone wolves, and then people that are in a wolf pack community come in and they gentrify the neighborhood. But you're right. You know what? I would say that's the number one reason. Neighborhoods that get gentrified, no matter what they look like demographically, they're lone wolves, and a lone wolf cannot fight off of a wolf pack.
Brother L.A., there's another thing that I was involved in when I was, in my prior profession. We had a thing where the people wanted to go in and they wanted to run a highway through some property. So one of the advisors said, well, look, here's what you do. You go in and you improve the buildings in your neighborhood to make it too expensive for them to go in and buy. And the thing is, that warded off the effort to go in and do what we needed, what the other people wanted to do, because it would be too expensive for them to come in and do what they needed to do. But now you also came up with a community, there's a, CDFI or some stuff like that, a community development, ever what it is, organization.
Oh, yeah, Community Development Corporation, they have those are probably during the urban renewal days. I guess it's still around as well.
Well, the thing is, what you do is, if you come up with a community association and you hire a bunch of lawyers and you hire the people that you need to go in and make sure that once you build that community up, you can protect what you need to protect. Along with improving the neighborhood and buying these houses, you know that somebody's going to come and try and disrupt what you're trying to do. And they're going to bring up all types of legalities to try and put stumbling blocks to put in your way. But all I'm saying is that because we have this lone wolf syndrome and we have this pie in the sky message that is being given to us every Sunday and through our organizations, that is why life is so hard for us as black people. Now, like I said before, it happens to everybody. But I'm not interested in everybody. I'm like Claude Anderson. I'm only dealing with my environment and the people that I associate with. And for Martin Luther King's children to go through what they went through, and you can add Malcolm X's children in there too. What happened is we don't pay our leaders. The only person that gets paid, the only leader that gets paid in the black neighborhood is a preacher. All of these other leaders, we do it on a volunteer basis. It doesn't make sense for our thinkers and our planners to have to do things for free. You know what? There used to be a sign in an organization where I belong to. Freedom ain't free. If you want to go in and make sure that you're liberated and you can keep the adversaries that is against your neighborhood or your race away from you, you have to pay your thinkers. And the thing is, the people that is opposed to us, they have think tanks. They have professionals going in to do things like you and I are talking about. And until we can divert our money from these pitiless leaders that can't think and is only looking to support their families by giving us pie in the sky, or integrationists, or the ones that's leading us into marches. Instead of us marching the streets and singing "We Shall Overcome," we should be marching to credit unions and saying, hey, this is what it takes to overcome. We're going to be faced with this problem until they eliminate us. And look, this thing of gentrification is real, but genocide is also real. When you look at the abortions and the birth control pills that Planned Parenthood is putting in our neighborhoods, all of this is a combination of trying to make sure that they, one, minimize our efforts to do things for ourselves, and the other thing is to get rid of us when we're of no longer use to us. And I know that sounds harsh and you may not agree with it, but That's where we're at. And we're going to have to change the dynamics and the messages that's floating through our neighborhoods. And I'll get off and let you respond to that. And if there's anyone opposed to what I'm saying, hey, let's start the dialogue.
Yeah, I agree. Let's do a dialogue here. Matter of fact, let me put this out here. And I'll probably pick up on this tomorrow because I think, tomorrow's Friday we're supposed to have guests. But I'm going to bring this part in, and it attaches on to what you're talking about, lone wolves, and this goes into why some of our neighborhoods get gentrified. The lone wolf syndrome. And this is a trending topic, and we'll end on this today. There's a case of, what's the guy's name? A 15-year-old Lysandro, I forgot his last name, but his first name is Lysandro. 15-year-old who was attacked by a minimum, they've arrested 8 people so far. 8 people ranging in the late teens to in their mid-20s. They attacked this 15-year-old in a bodega in New York City, I think in the Bronx or something like that. And they attacked him with machetes. They beat him. They chopped him up. They slashed his throat. The people in the bodega did not help. I don't think they called the police. Talk about lone wolves. This 15-year-old. And it was a case of mistaken identity because the gang members got the wrong guy. So the people in the bodega didn't help him out, didn't call the police. You can go to YouTube and check this out. This is a trending topic. They just had his funeral yesterday, and I think they buried him yesterday as well. And here's a 15-year-old who's bleeding profusely, and he was trying to make his way to the hospital. Nobody stopped to help him. We're talking about in New York City, a city that's got, the city itself has over 8 million people. So you tell me nobody saw this guy after he got, because they dragged him out of the bodega. This is on YouTube. You can check out the video of them doing this. They dragged him out of the bodega. So the people that worked at the bodega, they didn't even call the police to help him out. Didn't call no 911, nothing like that. Then they dragged him out. At least 8 people, if not more, but at least 8 people have been arrested so far. Then they beat him up, kicked him, stabbed him, used a machete, slashed his throat. He was bleeding profusely. Then they got in the car, drove away. And then he was trying to make it to the hospital. I don't know how many blocks he got. But in a city the size of New York City where you got people all over the place 24/7, because that's just New York. It never goes to sleep. Nobody called the police. Nobody tried to help him. And he died, I believe, I don't even think he made it. I think he made it to the hospital, but he collapsed and died before they came out of the hospital. But it is mind-blowing that from the bodega, and they got street cameras in New York, and that's another reason why. That's a big reason why a lot of neighborhoods get gentrified. We're going to go, tomorrow we're going to go, like I said, we got a guest tomorrow, but we're going to start the podcast off with the, information, give you updates on this. Like I said, they've arrested 8 people. Now, what's interesting is all 8 of those people that they've arrested, now they're lone wolves. If you go on YouTube and look at their arrangements, couldn't even hold their head up until the judge told them to hold their head up. Now they're lone wolves because they're all snitching on each other. 346, your mic is open.
Yeah, good morning, L.A.
Oh, good morning, Warren. Oh, you know what? I'm going to be calling you so we can do a whole thing on trust and gentrification.
Okay. How do I find that YouTube video? I'm just curious. What is the name of it? Or
go to YouTube and put a. Matter of fact, we got a little time left. Let me see if I can find it and tell you what to. Let's see. Put 15-year-old New York killing. But put 15-year-old stabbed to death in Bronx. Or 15-year-old stabbed, and the videos will pop up. A bunch of videos will pop up. 15-year-old stabbed New York.
Okay.
We got pictures of them. And you know, why I got you on the line now? Because you know you're a lawyer. Tell us the value of setting up a trust and a different type of trust. Estate planning to protect your family's asset. Let's start with that before we even get into a whole block. Let's start with the fundamentals, the value of that.
Well, LA, I just plainly put it, not just the value of that, the value of education is very, very important. The United States is a corporation, and a corporation which is set up for people to profit and make business and make money. And so I have always said that the racism thing is a cover-up for what's really going on. And if we would take our minds more so off of racism and get our minds on finances and economics, then we could overcome whatever situation, because most of the problems are not coming from people who are educated. It's coming from people who are uneducated that don't know any better. They don't have a clue as to what's really going on. And that's the majority of the masses who get caught up in the foolishness. Because at the end of the day, the only color that really matters is green. And so
I think you, one, we can't hear you. I think you muted yourself.
Can you hear me now?
Check my own mind.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm refreshing because we can't hear you, Warren. You went out all of a sudden.
Can you hear me? Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Yeah, we can hear you now. Yeah.
Okay, I don't know what the last part that you heard, but in my opinion, the only color that matters is green. And I think if we focus more on the aspect of finance, economics, estate planning, things of that nature, then we could overcome whatever situation we need to overcome. Because wherever you give your thought to, that becomes your image, or your energy is given to that thought. So, I've taught this for years. I've been teaching trust, estate planning, and how to set up your estate so you can successfully pass it to the next generation without being tied up and tangled into the courts. Because the will itself, if you pass without a will, then your estate is you become an incontested. So at that point, the court will appoint an attorney ad litem. So now the attorney ad litem sits in as the guardian of your estate. And I like to use Prince Rogers Nelson, who's, might I ask you, how long has Prince been dead now? What, 3 years or better? 3? Is it 3 years?
At least 2. Probably at least 2.
Well, his estate is still tied up in the courts in the state of Minnesota. And it's been valued at $300 million plus, and the plus is because they don't really know how much it's worth with all the songs and things that are in the vault that have never been heard and never been recorded. So, but I can guarantee you, whenever they get through with it, whenever they wrap up this case, they're going to walk away with well over at least probably about $200 million of that estate. So that's what happens when you fail to plan. And even if you have a will, Prince didn't have a will at all. Even if you have a will, what a will declares is that you're still going to have to probate the estate, which means that you're going to have to hire attorneys. So that's more money spent. And depends on if somebody, no matter what's in the will, it still can be contested. And if it's contested, that means it's tied up in court. And now you got the attorneys playing another game, which is because they're going to try to bleed it dry. And the attorneys have to be paid, whether it comes out of your pocket or it comes out of the estate, they have to be paid. And so this is a whole other game that we get tied up in the wheels. But you have the right to contract yourself. So if you use that right and you set up a trust within the trust, within the trust, you have appointed a trustee at your demise or the time that you become incapacitated, or if you can't speak or you lose your mind or whatever reason that you can't function, the trustee steps in and administers the trust the way you have written it out to be administered. It does not go to court. And the only reason it can be contested, if there is a contesting of the trust, is that it violates some state law. But as far as how you have administered the trust, it cannot be contested. And I like to use Winnie Mandela, and she's gone now, God rest her soul. But when Nelson died, she was cut out of the family estate, and she tried to get the courts to go in. When they had the trust meeting, she tried to get the courts to go in and divert that. She was unsuccessful. That's the power of a trust. So that's one way.
She tried to do that. She tried to do that twice that I know of, and she was, like you just stated, she was unsuccessful 2 times.
Right. Because you can't, once you set up a trust, that is a private. A will is a public account affair, but a trust is a private affair. And as long as that trust is not violating some state law, there's nothing in that trust that can be changed. And it does not involve the state or federal government.
Right.
So that's your future planning.
You have. Yeah, and that's fundamental. Like I said, we have to have that in place. Neighborhoods that get gentrified, typically they don't. On a household individual basis, you don't have nobody's a trust set up, nothing like that. They're not planning for the next.
I want to add this about gentrification. Whose fault is gentrification? Is it the black folks' fault, or the black man's fault, or the white man's fault? And I say that, because we're focused on the wrong thing. Look at Detroit. Detroit, Michigan. Since the Detroit riots, the white folks ran out and left the city. Black folks had the city since the Detroit riots. All this time. Buildings still burned down. Nothing built up. They had a democratic policy government where they pushed more social programs, welfare, and all this other stuff. And white folks look at opportunities, okay? And so now they've looked at the situation and said how bad and decapitated the city is and decided to come back in and revive it and make money. Now everybody's mad. Well, you've had the city well over 30, 40 years or better, and nothing changed. So whose fault is it when it comes to gentrification?
Late Coleman Young, he was mayor for 20 years himself. Yeah. Then you had Kwame Kilpatrick, you had Dave Bing. So yeah, they had it for at least 2 solid generations, if not 3.
Yeah. And the same thing, I just came back from New York last month. Same thing is happening in Harlem. White folks are moving on into Harlem. And so we have to sit down and look at it and analyze in those situations, because I don't think it's just the fact that white folks say, I'm going to run black. No, white folks are about money. And when they see an opportunity, they're going to capitalize on it. So if we get our mindset and our game right, be about money, finance, and economics, because this is what this so-called country is about anyway. That's what it's about. I've explained to people the difference between a business owner and an employee. A business owner get all the tax breaks and tax cuts in the world because that's the way this country was set up. If you are an employee, the legal definition of employer and employee, not by my standards, but what the legal definition is master and servant. So an employee is by all means a slave, and you're going to get taxed the hardest. So if we would have a mindset to build businesses, and especially in our own communities, then we can change all that.
That's true. You're absolutely right about that. Well, like I said, matter of fact, now, what are you doing? You promote your current legal thing.
Well, I really just kind of haven't been doing much here lately. I'm working with a company out of California that's moving to Houston, who has hired me to run their legal department. Matter of fact, I'm taking contracts courses through Villanova University. There are 4 courses. I'm in the 4th week. I have 3 classes that are 8 weeks apiece, and 1 class is 12 weeks. So I'm in my 4th week of my first class. After I finish these 4 classes, then I can go before the National Association of Contract Management Board and sit for that exam. And upon passing that exam, I'll be a professional certified contract manager. So I realize about the contract, so I'm getting deeper in it than just the law degree. I'm going, specifically into contracts.
Great. All right, that's good. Well, like I say, check out. Did you find the videos on that 15-year-old in New York?
Oh, I kind of stopped and started talking to you, so I haven't really punched it up yet. But let me see.
Yeah, well, we're going to pick. I think we got a guest tomorrow that she'll be talking about gentrification. But we're going to lead off with this because, like I say, in the case, he's 15-year-old, and then, you take the fabric of that. Well, for instance, the bodega, they closed it down. I think the city did. I don't know if it's permanent or whatever. More than if the city says it can't open back up in that location, then that's one business that'll move out the neighborhood. Then, like I say, he was 15-year-old. He was a 15-year-old bleeding through the streets of New York, and nobody helped him. Huh?
Yeah, I see that. Yeah, I see that.
Yeah, and some people from that event will leave that neighborhood because that's a high-profile crime. Yeah. And then, like you said, once the neighborhood gets sparse, opportunists see, well, you know what? Here's a bunch of empty places in this part of New York City. They come in, and as Beasley said, you put the prices where, certain people can't move in, and that's another reason why. Gentrifications they don't happen overnight. They're gradual and subtle.
Yes, and that's another thing people can do.
Right, and like I say, the 8 people that they've arrested, I don't know if they've arrested anybody overnight, but now they're
Let me give you one more example of what gentrification and where we're responsible for not taking action right here in Houston, in the South Park Sunnyside area. They end up putting a rail and running it straight down Martin Luther King Boulevard. Well, a lot of people were upset about that because it's a black area, black businesses, and the rail affected their business. But the question I asked when we were talking about it, I said, how many of you all went downtown to the city's urban planning and development department and looked on the books? Because this rail was the idea that they just had just yesterday or just last year. And this is another thing we don't do. If you go down to your city's urban planning and development department, you'll see what's going on. A lot of that stuff is on the books 20 and 30 years before it even come to pass. So you'll know what's taking place. You don't have to be in the dark.
That's true.
We act all surprised.
It's on the book there, particularly a city like Houston. It's the development plan. You can see it for free. You can find out when the meetings are. The meetings are typically free. And then you can even put your 2 cents in if you live in that community.
That's right, correct.
So it like I say, gentrification doesn't happen overnight. But people have got to get involved. Just like you said, find out where the meetings are, find out what the plans are, find out how you can get involved. That type of thing as well. And I guess in a city like Houston, something's always going on.
Right.
When it comes to, you got to protect your interests. You have to protect your interests. All right, so on that note, that's it for today. Everyone have a good rest of the day.